Now, no country has embraced the digital age with more enthusiasm than South Korea, but psychiatrists are worried that all that texting, tweeting and surfing is more than the human brain can handle. Harry Fawcett reports from Seoul on a wired generation increasingly looking for old-fashioned ways to log off.
A pleasant morning in a park in central Seoul, and a chance to catch up with friends, share a few stories face to face, at least for a certain generation. For those who've grown up clinging to their ever more powerful mobile devices, socializing doesn't always come so easily.
During the first couple of days, I felt that I lost a friend.
Kim Jin-soo recently gave himself a challenge to go 5 days without his smartphone. He felt he and his friends had been ignoring each other, even when together, and that his constant need to be online was becoming harmful.
I was using it all the time, be it on the bus or subway or in bed. I couldn't focus well when studying or reading because I was thinking about social networks, so I thought I had to cut back.
Nearly two-thirds of South Koreans are smartphone owners, each of them spending 50% more time on their devices than they did just 2 years ago. In recent years, there have been a growing number of studies speaking of the digital world's power to cause addiction, to rewire brains, to leave people feeling anxious, tired and depressed. And if there were one country in the world that you'd expect to find those symptoms, it would be here in super-wired South Korea.
Now it's hard to find a person who does not suffer from brain fatigue caused by emotional stress. That leads to symptoms like sleep disorders and a memory that flickers, like dementia. If it accumulates, you won't be able to feel a sense of happiness.
It's prompting some people to seek out happiness in the analog pleasures of the recent past. Jason Lee certainly believes it's a growing trend. This year, he set up South Korea's first vinyl record factory since the last one closed 8 years ago. He says for those used to invisible downloads, there's a comfort in possessing a physical object.
It feels good when you see a book on your desk or on your bed, the feeling that you have it. I think that's why people now go back to LP records.
There's no halting South Korea's rush into an ever more digitized world, but some are at least trying to take a break from it and take a leaf from the book of their analog elders. Harry Fawcett, Al Jazeera, Seoul.
Well, joining us to talk about the good and the bad of being constantly cyber-connected is Dr. Elias Aboujaoude. He's a Stanford University psychiatrist and the author of Virtually You, The Dangerous Powers of the E-Personality. He's live from Palo Alto. Thank you very much for talking to us. So there's no denying that, our life has become a digital one. We're constantly either tweeting, Facebooking, SMSing 24/7. Just how harmful is this, not just psychologically, but also physically?
Well, it seems like every week brings us a new study that points to some psychological damage that's resulting from our increasingly wired online life. In my field of psychiatry, it's becoming more and more obvious that problems with attention, for instance, are resulting from becoming so used to the high pace of online life. It's becoming very difficult for us to concentrate on focus on something that requires any degree of attention. We're also seeing an increase in violence that's happening as a result of the cruelty that we often manifest in our anonymous blogs and our anonymous online posting. This violence is exported, if you will, into offline life as well, making us more violent and less moral in many ways than we used to be, and that's a direct consequence, in my opinion, of the many hours we spend online behaving in a very different way.
Now, the story that we just run was about South Korea, but what are you seeing elsewhere in places like the US? Is digital addiction a global phenomenon?
It very much is a global phenomenon. I've spoken about my book to audiences all over the world, really, and with every audience I've addressed, I've had people come up to me, students, teachers, general audience members, to tell me how much these ideas and how much this phenomenon of internet addiction resonates with them. I think the difference with South Korea, and this is something that they very much deserve to be commended on, is that they're taking this problem much more seriously than the rest of the world. But this is not a unique problem to them. No country, culture, or continent is immune to this love affair with online and digital technology.
So when psychiatrists see people struggling with this addiction, I mean, what sort of treatments do they prescribe? How do you deal with this?
Well, we do need a lot more studies to guide us in how to treat these individuals, but we have some basic ideas that we work with, often with good results, and these ideas are often imported from how we treat other conditions that bear similarities with internet addiction. Conditions such as obsessive-compulsive disorder or OCD, for instance, or other behavioral addictions, such as an addiction to buying or an addiction to gambling. There are features that internet addiction shares in common with all these other disorders, and we often start approaching it the way we approach those other conditions, be it with behavioral interventions and what's called cognitive behavioral therapy, or sometimes psychopharmacologically making use of medications that we often use for those other disorders.
All right, Elias, one last question, and please make us feel better. Are there any good sides, any benefits to being digitally addicted, besides perhaps being good at multitasking? Are there any good sides to it?
Well, psychologically, I often prescribe, if you will, being online to many of my patients who have social anxiety disorder, patients who have great difficulty initiating contact and making friends. It often helps them to meet people online, break the ice, as they say, and gradually move the relationship offline. I think the difficulty that you often find on Facebook and Twitter and social media in general is that people can start feeling content with their 500 Facebook friends or 1,000 Twitter followers, and start feeling that this is enough, friends-wise, and I don't need to develop offline relationships. I think we need to have a foot in both worlds, if you will, maintain our online relationships, but certainly not to the exclusion of much more sustaining offline friendships and relationships as well.
Well, thank you very much for your perspective. That's Elias Aboujaoude, author of Virtually You, The Dangerous Powers of the E-Personality, joining us there live from California. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.